Okay, you had just finished working on number 16 on page 14 of your 2.3 notes. So we were checking it right when the video cut us off. So let's go ahead and finish that. So again, I picked this point because it had the least number of negatives. If you had picked this point, we all get the same answer at the end. So you don't ever have to worry, oh, how do I know which point to pick? Doesn't matter. I just always pick the one with the least number of negatives because negatives are where students miss a lot of points generally. So we have our point slope form here, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. We have a point, but we're missing the slope, so we are finding the slope, second y1 minus the first y negative 1, second x negative 3 minus the first x negative 5. So we have two sets of double negatives here, which we need to make plus. So this turns into 1 plus 1, 2 over negative 3 plus, orange doesn't cover very well, negative 3 plus 5 is 2, so we get a slope of 1. Oh, that is pretty. Finally, we got a nice answer. So 1 plus 1, 2, 5 minus 3, 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So there's our m. And like I said, I'm picking this one for my x1, y1. If you pick that one, you'll see we got the same answer. So y minus, and my y1 is 1, equals m1 times x minus, and my x sub 1 is negative 3. So this is so important. Before you do any distributing, fix your double negatives. Otherwise, you're going to think that answer is going to be negative, and it's not. So x minus from the formula, negative 3 turns into x plus 3. So now I have y minus 1 equals 1x, which is just x. 1 times positive 3 is plus 3. And then one step away from done, plus 1, and we get y equals x plus 4. And what I do when I'm taking a test and I have a problem like this is I just plug in and make sure when I plug in this x and add these, I get the y. So plug in negative 5. Negative 5 plus 4 is negative 1. Is y negative 1? Yes. And then plug it in here. Plug x in is negative 3. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1. Is y 1? Yes. So you can plug both points in and make sure you get a true statement. So I just did that. Both were true. So I can walk away and go, yes, I got that problem correct because I checked it. So, and I think most of the time on the test, students tell me they have extra time because I've been given about a half an hour extra with online. So hopefully you'll be able to go back and check those. Okay, we're on the last page of our 2.3 notes. So this is page 15, and this is a summary of what we've learned. So we talked about before how standard form is ax plus by equals c. So here's an example of standard form. Horizontal line. Horizontal lines only go through the y-axis, right? So that's why they're always y equals, because horizontal lines only pass through the y-axis. So they won't have an x in them, they'll only have a y because they only pass through the y-axis. And we learned horizontal lines have a slope of 0, and the y-intercept's always going to be 0, comma, whatever that is. In this case, it would be 0, 3. Vertical lines are just the opposite. Vertical lines only pass through the x-axis. So because they only pass through the x-axis, they're always x equals, And this one said -2, so we'll go there. So x equals -2. So see how it only passes through the x, it doesn't pass through the y, that's why they're x equal. There's no skiing on this, that's why the slope is undefined, and the x-intercept's always going to be whatever this is, so in this case you can see it crosses at -2, 0. Next, we learned about slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. We learned m is the slope, and the y-intercept, x is always 0, 0, comma, b. And so here you can see the slope is -2, and the y-intercept is 0, comma, 5. And so we solve the equation for y to get the slope-intercept form, and the coefficient, or the number in front of the x, is always the slope. The constant, which means the number without the letter, is the y coordinate of the y-intercept. And last, we learned about point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. M is the slope, and x1, comma, y1 is a point on the line. So if we had slope of -2, we plug that in, and we put 3 in place of the x1, and we put 1 in place of the y1. So this is building an equation, and usually we use this when the slope is known. So then we have a couple oddball problems, like kind of cool things that make you think a little bit. I like these kind. I usually put at least one on a test. Find the equation of the line in slope-intercept form. So that means my final answer has to look like y equals mx plus b. Here's my point, and it's parallel to this. So I need a slope. So what slope am I going to use if it's parallel to that line? Same slope, right? 7/3. Because parallel means they're the same slope. So now I have my x1, I have my y1, and I have my slope. So aren't I ready to write my point slope form? So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And I think I put one of these on the practice test and one on the regular test. So these would be good ones to highlight to study. Because like I said, I did put one on the test. I think I put a parallel one on the practice test and a perpendicular one on the real test, or vice versa. So definitely study those. So I have my x1, I have my y1, and I have my m, because if it's parallel to this, it's the same slope. So I'm ready to plug and chug. So y minus, I look up here and go, oh, my y sub 1's -2. In place of m, I'm going to put 7/3. X minus, my x sub 1 is 2. Not -2, just 2. So no double negative. But I do have a double negative over here. So let's make that plus. And then let's get this ready for the calculator. So that leads me to y plus 2 equals 7/3 times x is 7/3 x. And we have 7/3 times -2. So let's go ahead and do that. So 7 fraction bar 3 times -2, and see why I always put that in, so you don't forget the multiplication symbol, -2. So -4 2/3. And then I'm only one step away from done. I need to get my y alone, because remember it's supposed to look like this at the end. So do the opposite, subtract 2, subtract 2. And I get y equals 7/3 x. When the signs are the same, add and keep the sign, so -6 2/3. If you want to verify it on your calculator, remember you have this negative 4 2/3 already in there, so then just hit subtract, whoops, too high, subtract 2, and it will verify that you have that correct, negative 6 2/3. Done. Okay, so when it's parallel, you just use the exact same slope they gave you. This next one, though, is perpendicular, so I'm not going to use the same slope. Remember, I got to change the sign and reciprocate. So this one's positive, so my slope's going to be negative, and when I reciprocate, 1/5. Okay, so if it's parallel, you just bring down the exact same slope. When it's perpendicular, you change the sign and reciprocate. And here's my x1, here's my y1, so I'm ready to go into point slope form. So y minus 0 equals m, negative 1/5, times x minus 5. So put my times sign in, get my arrows there. So what is y minus 0? Still just y, right? So y equals, so y minus 0 is y, negative 1/5 times x is negative 1/5 x. And then on the calculator, negative 1 fraction bar 5 times negative 5. So the answer should be positive, right? A negative times a negative is positive. Boom, look at that. Positive 1. And look at, it's already solved for y. I'm done. Yay! So that goes in place of m. Put your point in, distribute. Already solved for y, and the reason it was already solved for y is because y minus 0 is just y. I also put number 19 on the test. So this is another one you want to highlight. So I ask you 3 questions, just like I do here. I ask you for the y-intercept. I ask you for the slope. And then I ask you to write the equation in y equals mx plus b form. So let's take a look at this. What is the y-intercept? So I go on the y-axis and I look at where the line crosses the y-axis, and it looks like it crosses at 0, negative 2. The negatives are kind of buried there, but we're below the x-axis, so you know it's a negative. So you do have to make sure you write it as a point. Intercepts are the point where they cross the axis, so it should always be as a point. Y-intercept always has x0, and then you pull the point from where it crosses the y-axis. So now I have to count my slope, so I need to find another point on the line. That doesn't cross at a corner, that doesn't cross at a corner. It looks like this does. That doesn't cross at a corner, that doesn't, looks like this does. So now I can count my slope. So my slope, remember, is rise over run. So this line is falling, so my slope better be negative. So going from left to right, what's my rise? Down 1, 2, 3. So down 3 is negative 3. Run 1, so it'll be negative 3 over 1, which is just negative 3. Now I have my b and I have my m, so now I can write my equation. Y equals negative 3x minus 2. So I just plug it into y equals mx plus b. So in place of m, I put -3 in place of b, -2. So that problem is on your test.